The one thing I will say, I already got text about it today for the Mindset app. So that's ready. Okay, so what that is, we have a link ready for you. So just have us text us either on the Hoops app or through email or text and just ask, hey, can I get the Mindset app? And that has all the previous videos, so you can go back and look at your notes, or if you forgot how to do a certain mental training activity, you can go back and do that. Does that sound good? But I'm not putting it on the board because then anybody can go and download the link, so that's why I'll just send it to you directly. Cool? Yes? Awesome. Now, first thing, review. What were the first two pillars of our mental training curriculum? What was the first one? Mindfulness. Okay, so what are we struggling with, and why is that the solution? Not that simple. Having thoughts, are thoughts bad themselves? What makes them bad? That we do what? Then we listen to them. When we listen to them blindly, right? Sometimes should we listen to our thoughts, but other times should we not? Most people, if they're not mindful, they just have a dictator in their head, and they just do whatever that person says. Make sense? And so mindfulness, why is that the solution? Do you remember the dimensions of the mind? What's the dimensions of the mind?
Negative, the watcher, and positive.
Yep, so we add a watcher, right? So that's our second person. And what does that allow us to do?
Watch our bad thoughts.
Yes, we watch our bad thoughts, but then can we reason with ourselves?
Yeah.
But if we don't watch, do we have any of that? No. Make sense? And were you here for the first two classes? Okay, so make sure you get that app and you can go back and look at them. Because some of the stuff I say might not make sense, but if you go back and look at those videos, they will. Cool? Now, what's the third day about?
Why?
Nope.
Compassion.
Compassion. Okay, so everyone write that down on their notebook. Compassion. Okay, now, do you remember, so I explained this on the first day, the overview of the curriculum. All right? Why is compassion the third solution? Okay, what is it the solution to? Do you remember? It starts with an E.
No.
You're close. Flip that around. It's when you think about yourself. Yes. So write down the ego is how much your thoughts revolve around you. Okay? So essentially the ego is a makeup in the thoughts in your head about who you think you are. So generally, if we have a high sense of ego, which all of us do, there's nobody that doesn't have a high ego, okay? Because we're always thinking about us. But the higher the ego, the more those thoughts revolve around us, right? So say we never really think about other people. Like say you're having a conversation with someone, and you only think about what you're going to say in that conversation. Is that a high ego?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, is that something you should be ashamed of? No, it's very normal. Okay, but I'm going to teach you kind of how to try and stay away from that and why it's really good for us to stay away from that. Does that make sense? Okay. So what did I just say? What does a high ego mean?
That you like you said, if you're talking, you're gonna worry about what you're gonna say.
Yeah. So for example, Cam, stand up. A lot of times when we have a conversation with another human being, okay, say I'm having a conversation with Cam. How's life?
Awesome.
Awesome.
I love
Okay.
rock music.
That's beautiful. So he's talking about himself the entire time, and normally the other person in the conversation is trying to do what?
Reason.
Talk about themselves the entire time? That's normally how conversation goes, right? You talk about yourself, I talk about myself. That's very normal, okay? But today we're going to learn why we kind of want to lessen that ego. Cool? Is that real world example make sense though? Have you ever felt that in a conversation? There's a very large stigma around that word, okay? Am I talking about a very high state of pleasure experiences when I talk about happiness? Or am I talking about a consistent, life is good mentality? That's happiness. So that I like to use well-being now, just because so many people hear the word happiness and think that they're supposed to be, smiling and super, super happy all the time. That's not how it works. Just a consistent state, if I were to ask you every day for 365 days, almost every day you'd be like, life's really good. Nothing to complain about. Make sense? So that's pretty consistent well-being. It's what we want to get to. All right. So what do you think every action someone takes is looking for? You want more friends. Why?
Popular.
Be popular. Why?
Love.
Because you think it's going to make you what?
Rich.
Happy.
Oh.
You want to be rich because you think it's going to make you what?
Happy.
Happy. Okay, you want to be good at basketball because you think it's going to make you what?
Happy.
Happy. Okay, so write this down. all actions are looking for happiness, or a better word would be well-being. Okay? Now, I want you to triple underline all. Why?
Because all
So what includes all?
every single thing you do every single day.
So is it just good actions? Do bad actions we take look for the same thing? When someone picks on another person, are they looking for happiness with that action? They sure are. They're trying to make themselves feel above another person. Is it a smart choice of how we want to be happy? No, that's actually going to make it worse. Okay, but all actions, good or bad, are looking for that. Does that make sense? Yes? Cool. Okay. Now, and I already covered the word, okay, when I'm talking about happiness, am I talking about this elated state where you're smiling all the time, laughing, life's always, perfect? No, it's just a consistent life is good. Make sense? So we're at equilibrium, we're calm, consistent state. Third, everyone's going to write down the happiness edge, okay? In their notebook, happiness edge. Okay? So, kids, if every action we take is looking for that, do you think it's important that we think about the object itself or the root of all the objects? The root of all the objects. Okay, so this is where the flip of the switch kind of happened to me. A good example is the CTG's business. Okay, I was focused a lot when I first started on the business's numbers. So how many kids we had, how much money we were making. But when I focused on this word right here, for myself, for my workers, everything was a lot easier, okay, and a lot more effortless. So I want you to write down this word, amplifier. Does anyone want to guess what that means? Makes things louder? Yes, okay. So when we focus on this word, do you think it's just going to affect basketball and make it better? Or do you think it's going to amplify everything in your life? All things, because what are all things looking for? That, happiness, well-being. Does that make sense? So what a happiness edge is happiness comes, everyone write this down, before success. What do most people think the equation is?
Success comes before happiness.
Most people think once I get successful, then I'll be happy. That's the number one illusion everyone thinks about life. Okay, why is this not a great choice? What I say is at the root of all actions. So is it the actual action itself, or is it that? That, happiness. Does that make sense, kids? So do you think we should focus on this first? Okay, or the actual external object, like success, or basketball, or money? Focus on that first, because that'll come before. So will this be a byproduct? Is this going to come a lot easier if we focus on this first? Yes. Does that make sense? Now, people are always saying, why am I talking about this when it comes to sports? Why is this a perfect example of why this is very important to learn for sports? You take a player with the same skill set, whoever has a higher state of well-being is going to do what?
Be more successful.
They're going to play better. They're going to be a much better player than the person that isn't in a good mood, or constantly whining about calls, or getting mad every time they miss a shot. Does that make sense? So this has everything to do with sports, because even in sports, this is what you're looking for, even though it doesn't seem like it. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, we're going to talk about something called, sorry kids, this doesn't have a break, the happiness baseline. So write that down. So essentially right now mentally, what do we need to focus on? Improving our what? Well-being, right? Because that's going to make us a better what? Player. Are we going to be in a more calm state of mind? Are we going to make better decisions? Yes. And is this just in sports? No. All things are going to get better. All right. Now, the happiness baseline, what this represents. All right. Everyone, statistically, scientifically proven, has an internal baseline of happiness. So what this means, kids, and you can draw this diagram, it's a cup, all right? A lot of times on normal days, we're filled to our happiness baseline. Now, say Cam is in the championship game for the CTG 3v3 shooting camp, and he hits a buzzer beater for the championship. All right? Cam's going to feel really good about himself for maybe a week or even 2 weeks. Okay? So our cup fills up. But this is important, kids, to understand. Our brain and body adapts to its new environment. So you're going to get used to this new cup feeling, Cam, and slowly over time it's going to do what? It's going to go back to where, though? The happiness baseline. Okay? Another good example is the lottery. Right? Everyone wants to win the lottery. Okay, and it will maybe last even a year where you're at this high, elated state of happiness. But your brain and body is going to adapt to what? Is it going to adapt to the new way of living? And it's going to go back to where? Yeah. So do you think we want to fill the cup or do we want to raise the line? How do we do that? Is it that simple? No. Okay. So what raises the cup right now? Not the line. What raises the cup? Things inside of us or outside of us? Outside of us. Do we have any control over outside things? Is it okay if outside things make you feel good? Yeah, that's okay. But should we rely on them? Because we can't do what? Can you control it? No. What can you control? Yourself and the way your thoughts think, right? We can't immediately flip the switch, be a different person mentally, but can we build habits towards that? So that's what all this is working towards. Now the reason the ego and compassion is one of the most important parts of the mental training curriculum is because it is the #1 way to increase this line internally. So if you want to increase that line as fast as you can, okay, you focus on this word. So I want everyone to write down #1 increase of happiness baseline is what? What is it, kids? What is it? What's today's curriculum? Compassion. Okay, so write that word down. It's okay if you don't know what it means. Does everyone have this drawing written? Yes or no? You do? Okay, does this line make sense? What's the #1 way we increase this line? Compassion. Okay, now, who wants to take a stab at what that means?
Have a will to do something.
Yes. That's correct. That's part of it. Anybody else want to take a guess?
Like your love of basketball or your love of sports.
So you're on the right track, okay, but you want to direct that towards who?
Yourself.
You do want to have compassion towards yourself, but you also want to have compassion towards who? Other people. Okay, so compassion is your want and ability to help other people. Write that down. Okay? Now, to help another person, what does that mean you're trying to help them with? What are all actions looking for? So we're trying to help them struggle less. Does that make sense? So compassion right now, for me, am I acting out compassion by trying to help you, Ali, be more happy? Yeah. So I'm practicing compassion right now with this class. That's why I love to do it. Okay? So does it make sense what compassion means? Raise your hand if it doesn't. It's okay if it still doesn't make sense. We're all on the same page. Now, everyone square this. The more compassion goes up, the more the what goes down? The ego. Okay? Now this is very counterintuitive for sports. And I'm going to debrief why you actually want to have less of an ego in sports.
Because when you have a big ego, like you're saying, like it's just you. It's like a 1v1 and you don't have any teammates.
Yeah. So especially for basketball, you play with who?
Your teammates.
4 other people on the court. Right? So that means you're 20% of the team, statistically, math-wise. Okay, so do you think you should be focusing on the 20% most of the time? Or the 80%? 80%. Simple math. It's not that simple, but that puts into perspective how much more important the other people are than yourself for the team to win. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Now, I want everyone to write this down. So ego is high, means this graph, and I'm going to explain everything here, but I just want you to make a T. Okay, and above that T, you're going to write ego up equals, and then you're going to divide it by more or less. So what that means is if we have a high ego, you're going to have more of these qualities and less of these qualities. And this is all debriefing why having less of an ego in sports is actually good. Does that make sense? What's ego again, Braden? What's ego? So ego is construction of what? Thoughts, and then how much you think about yourself. That's your ego. Make sense? Or that would represent a high ego. Like the conversation example we gave. Remember that? Cool. The first thing, so if we have a very high ego, and this is what most people think you want to have in sports, first thing you're going to write down, number one, fear is going to go up. Why? So if all your thoughts are revolving around yourself, okay, does that mean it's 0 or 100% with your wins and losses? Yeah, because you're only focused on you. So there's a lot more pressure and weight on yourself for external things to go good or bad. And we learned that. Can we fully control those? No. Okay. So thinking about ourselves more is going to add more fear to ourselves. Okay, because we're not reliant on that other 80% on our team or the other 4 players, because we're constantly swirling ourselves in our own thought. Does that make sense? So why would ego go down, or sorry, why would fear go down if the ego goes down? Yeah, right? So you're going to be more worried about helping other people than worried about how you're going to screw up, or how you're going to mess up, or how you're going to fail. Does that make sense? Do you think we're going to play a lot better if we have less fear? We sure are. Okay, we're going to have a lot less fear of losing anything we have. Okay, hard work not paying off. You're not going to have those thoughts when you're revolved around the team and your teammates and other people in general. Cool? So when ego is high, what else is high? Fear. Okay, do you play well when you're fearful or nervous or anxious about every play? No. Okay. Okay, the second thing is separation. Okay, and it goes hand in hand with fear. The more we separate ourselves from our teammates, the more that what's going to go up? Your ego, yes, but also this key number one, fear. Okay, and basically all your mistakes, kids, and all of your failures are normally stem from what? Fear. You're scared of failure. Okay, and how do we learn and how do we grow? You have to mess up. Like today was ball handling camp, right? Okay, how do you get good at dribbling? By being good or bad at a drill? Bad. Always bad at ball handling. Right? When I was demonstrating, did I still lose the ball? But was I going as fast as I could? Yes, I was. That's why I lost it. But I've done that drill like 1,000 times. So shouldn't I never lose it? That's the mindset we got to get rid of. Make sense? Then the third is the why me disease. Okay, so write that down, the why me disease. So the more we focus on ourselves, kids, the more we're always looking at the world, why me? You know, why does this have to happen to my life? Why am I the one to have a bad day? Why can't I be like my friend that's really good at basketball? Okay, but we're always asking, why me, why me, why me? Because it's revolving around the what? The ego, okay? Do you think that's a healthy mind state to have? No. Okay, you're always focused on what's wrong. So when our ego goes down, do you think we focus more on wrong or right? Right, because you're intentionally trying to help other people and you know that's helping your what? The H word. Happiness. Okay, so you're going to be a better person. Cool? Now, the other side. The higher the ego, the less, of course, you're going to have what? You're going to focus on who less? Other people. Why is that a giant problem in basketball? Yeah, you're one of 5 players on the court. And that doesn't even represent the team. What if there's 11 kids on your team? We'll round it to 9%, let's say. You get what I'm saying, though? Again, it's not that simple of math, but it puts into perspective how little of a percentage you are of the team. So focus more on the bigger percentage. All right? Now, I want everyone to write down this word because it's very important. Interconnectedness. Interconnectedness. Does anyone want to guess what this means?
Like, you're like, it's not connected to your thoughts, you're connected to like outside,
You're so close.
like outside.
Okay, so answer me this question. Has any human ever gotten anywhere without another human? Everything about you has been helped by another human. None of you are separate. Nothing in the world is separate. To have this floor, what has to make up this floor? It's wood.
Humans like, you have to chop down trees.
Yep, you chop down trees, so trees make the wood. What grows the trees?
The ground,
The ground, the soil. What grows the soil with the roots in the tree?
water, sun.
The water, the sun. You see all those different components, all to make this right here? Everything is extremely connected. Okay, and there's a little phrase that I want you to write down. It's called see the table, see the universe. Okay, big word, but what is that simple phrase just trying to say? What's the point it's trying to get across?
When you see one thing, you see more.
Is everything extremely interconnected? Is anything separate? Is anything successful separate from another person or another object helping you? No. Okay, so we're not separate, but what are we all focused on? Being separate. The higher the ego, the more you focus on being separate. But in reality, nothing is. And everything's way more connected than you think. So all that's trying to do is open your eyes so you do have less of this. Does that make sense? Yes? Cool. So what is interconnectedness?
Interconnectedness is being more successful.
Is this separate wood? No. Is it separate from what helped it?
No.
No. Right? So we have to rely on others.
It's like where basically what you said, you have to rely on others. There has to be two people to do the thing. Like the light bulb, Thomas Edison had somebody else.
Yeah. So if we're so reliant on other people, do you think we should spend more time focusing on them? Yeah. Okay. But again, you're thinking, how is this going to help me grow faster? Okay. Do you think you yourself have grown yourself faster, or your parents? With your teachers? All the people helping you. That's what's growing you fast, not yourself. Make sense? Cool. And then, of course, team-oriented. So we're going to have less team-oriented, which also means there's, the less we think about the team, there's more pressure on who? Us. So every little mistake we make, every little action we have, the more we think of ourselves, the more pressure we put on ourselves, the more fear we have. All right? Now, how you see others. Everyone write that phrase down and underline see. Okay? So, obviously all of us right now, normally when we talk to someone or we compare ourselves with other people, we're creating something called a hierarchy. All this means is you're creating a system of someone below, above, or equal to you. Majority of the time, anytime you communicate with someone, are you finding every way possible to make yourself seem better than that person?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Why is this a giant problem? Yep, bigger ego. What happens when we compare ourselves to other people? Everyone write this down. Comparison limits you. Now, why would comparison limit you?
Because you're thinking about how you.
If you become the best ball handler in your grade, are you the best ball handler in the world?
No.
Move to a different city. There's someone better than you at it. Okay, say you get better at that city. You move to a different one. Is there going to be someone better than you? Okay, so do you see how it limits you? No matter what you could possibly put all your effort into, someone else is going to be better than you at it. So see how there's a cap on your potential when you compare? Now, what if you put your comparison, the way you see other people, into yourself? What if you only focus on yourself, becoming the best version of yourself? Are there limits? Really?
No.
There's no limit. You can always be a little better. You can always be closer to that best version of yourself. You see how that works? So comparison limits you. So what I'm trying to get at with this is that when we see other people, if we create a hierarchy, that means we're creating what? You're creating comparisons if you're creating a hierarchy. So when I see Cam, I'm not trying to create a plane between me and Cam. I'm not trying to make myself seem above you. But should I put myself below Cam? No, we want to be equal. Okay, so you don't want to just completely surrender to everyone and do everything everyone else says. Okay, because then you have no ego whatsoever. It is important to have some of it. We just need to change how much we use of it. Does that make sense? But does that comparison limits you make sense? Because especially for you kids growing up, all you do is compare yourself to other people. Just remember, if you compare it to your best version of yourself that you're aiming for, it's unlimited. There is no limit. But the second you put it on another person, there's always going to be a cap. Cool? Cool. Okay, now, so to sum up that, the gist of that, how do we want to see other people? Equal, right? So we don't want to secretly create a hierarchy where we're above or below another person, okay? And I want everyone to write this down. Know them, only us. What does that mean?
Worry about yourself, kind of.
Well, if we're creating a hierarchy or comparing ourselves, comparing ourselves, okay, are you creating a them? Like there's you, that's your party, and then there's me. See how you're creating separation? Is there such thing as separation with us? No, we're all super interconnected and we all help each other. Make sense? So only us means everyone you communicate with is somehow in way, shape, or form important to you, because in opportunity one, it could either grow you or grow the other person. Make sense? Cool. And then, of course, communication, kids. So when people, what do you think defines a special person? You're reading my lettering, aren't you? Right? So people are attracted to good people, but what kind of good people are those people? How are you a good communicator, though?
Like you talk to people.
Well, do you talk to them with your ego, or do you talk with them seeing them on the equal plane?
Like seeing them on an equal plane.
Yeah. So do you have less ego in that conversation?
Yeah, because you want to know what they're gonna say.
So you actually care about that person. You actually care about what they're going to say, and you're not focused on what you're going to say. Make sense? Yes? So less ego is going to help your ability to communicate, and people are going to be a lot more attracted to you because you actually care about them. You're not just, faking it for your ego to make yourselves look better. There's a big difference. Cool? Awesome. So now do we see how this would help us in sports? Yes? The biggest thing, though, in sports, the more ego you have, the more fear there is, the more pressure there is on yourself. And again, I would create a different chart if it was something like a one-on-one sport like wrestling or tennis, right? There's no team there. So the mental game's a little bit different. But generally, in basketball terms and in life, are you going to be on your own a lot in life? Generally not. You're going to be getting help from a lot of other people, whether it's your boss, your parents, okay, your teachers, even your classmates, okay? So rule of thumb, ego high, this is the chart it's going to create, and that's why we don't want it. Cool? Are there questions? Awesome. Now, on to compassion. Okay, so just underline compassion again in your notebook. Okay, beautiful. We're on time. All right, the first thing about compassion. So what is compassion again? You. Yes.
How much you care about somebody.
So how much you care about somebody, how could we go a little farther in that definition?
How much you care about something, somebody, like how
So it's my want to actually help you, to have you have less struggle, to help with whatever your situation's doing. So acting on it, actually wanting to do it, wanting to help this person, that's compassion. Make sense? You think that'll come in handy as a teammate? And we're going to dive into why that is. Okay, but the first thing you need to write down is compassion needs to be unchanging. Write that down. Why is this a very important sentence? A lot of times, who is it easy to be compassionate towards? Well, yeah, do you like your parents? Yeah, they're pretty good parents. Is it easy to want to help them? What about the other side of the spectrum? No, people you don't like. It's pretty hard to be compassionate towards those people, right? Why do you think it's bad to condition our compassion that way? Do you have true compassion for someone if you only want to help the people you like? No. Okay, that's going to limit your compassion and, of course, increase your ego. Does that make sense, kids? So the first thing is understanding that we need it to be unchanging. So write down, doesn't matter if it's a positive or negative person, or even a neutral relationship. So what would an example of a neutral relationship be? Say you're walking home from, so I live right next to Craig. I would walk home every day from school. Say I walk by a construction worker or something. Do I have any idea who he is? Do I normally give any thought to a neutral person in my life that I've never seen before? If you're neutral, not really, right? But does that person deserve just as much happiness as you do? Yeah. So you see how that works? You're no more deserving, okay, than another person, whether they're good or bad. Cool? Okay, and that actually leads into what I was going to write down. Everyone put a question mark. Who's deserving of compassion? So like I said, kids, with every action we take, what is everyone trying to do? They're looking for what? Happiness, which is essentially meaning I want to struggle less. I want to have less struggle. That's what happiness or well-being is. Okay? And is that with all actions, Braden? Even bad ones? I tried to trick you there. Okay, even bad actions are looking for happiness. Like when you pick on another person, that person's trying to put themselves above you to make themselves feel good, which is looking for happiness. It's a very poor choice because it's not going to work. But does that make sense how either one is looking for the same thing? Okay, so does that mean we all have an equal amount of deserving of less suffering? Yes. So we cannot condition our happiness to just people we like and not to people we don't like. Cool? Because there are going to be people on your team you don't like. Yeah. You got to have the same want to help that teammate as you do with other people. You can't pick favorites like that. Because then again, are you weighting the different people on your team? Yes. Okay. Is that going to make the team not as good? Do you get what I mean by weighting? So say you like one person and you dislike 3 of them, you're leaving out a 60% chunk of your lineup, mathematically speaking. Okay? Now, and same in a sense that we're all looking to struggle less. Cool? So we all deserve, doesn't matter how many good things you do, Cam, you don't deserve it more than another person or a construction worker that you've never seen before. Make sense? Cool. Now, this is going to get a little complicated, kids, but I want everyone to write down this sentence. You have to know to see. Okay, does anyone want to guess at what this is? Is it going good? Okay. Ali?
Like, say, like you want to play basketball, and you have to know how to do it to, like, beat the sport.
Yep.
Do it like good. And if you want to see, you have to know how to see. Basically like that.
I love that you're guessing, Ali. That's not the exact track, okay? But I want everyone to write down 2 circles, okay? One is you're going to write down reality, and the other you're going to write down mind. Okay? So kids, you're going to learn something new today, and you can go to your science teachers once you go back to school in September and talk about this, because it's pretty cool. All right? Mantis shrimp. Does anybody know what mantis shrimp is? What is mantis shrimp?
Isn't it something like it doesn't really look like shrimp? It looks like a praying mantis, I think.
That is correct. Do you know what it does, though? What makes it special? Okay. So a mantis shrimp, humans have 3 cones in their eyes. That allows us to see color. A mantis shrimp has 16 cones. So 3 cones, we can see probably like hundreds of thousands of different colors, correct? They have 13 more cones than you. So they see millions and billions of colors that you can't see. So what this is trying to represent is that there is reality out there. But our mind interprets that. Okay? So how we think and the way we see the world, is it different for every single person in the universe? Yes. So does that affect their decision making, do you think? Yes. Okay? So, and this is reiterating why I think this mental training is so important, because do you experience anything without your brain?
No.
So how you construct your thoughts is the way you see reality, right? And a good example is a TV show. Does anybody watch Outer Banks? It's a popular TV show. Okay? So one of my buddies did not like that show. Okay? But I like the show. Is the show portraying the exact same thing? Yes, it is. But our mind is interpreting it differently, which is creating that like and dislike. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's 2 things, and these are the main concepts that affect a person's decision making. One's called genes, and the other is called environment. What is a gene? Does anybody know? Beautiful. So if you have tall parents, you're most likely going to be what? Tall. Okay. What is environment? That you're correct. The place around you. So for example, like a life environment would be the parents I grew up with, the education that I learned. Everyday life experiences is your environment. Does that make sense? The combination of these 2 is what causes a person to make a decision. Now, one, why is judgment why do we have an unhealthy relationship with judgment? We judge a lot, correct? Why do you think it's not a great idea to judge as much as we do? Like, for example, other people.
Because when you're judging, you're thinking more about other people than yourself.
In reality, you're not. You're actually comparing it to yourself more. But the more you judge others, the more you judge who? Yourself. Beautiful. And is that going to create a lot of problems if you overjudge yourself on every little mistake? When someone airballs a shot in basketball and they can't get over it, what are they doing? They're judging themselves. And that habit was created because of their habit of judging other people. Does that make sense? But to go back to you have to know to see, is it fair for me to judge someone's decision making? Or say they make a bad choice? Is it fair for me to judge that person? Do I know what life they've lived? Do I have the same genes they have? No. So it's not fair for me to say, I would do something differently in that situation. You wouldn't. Okay? Make sense? Yes? So does that make it easier to increase our compassion for maybe people we don't like? Yes, because we have no idea what it's like to live their lives. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Okay? So that can help us increase that compassion. Make sense? So what does you have to know to see mean? You have to know to see. What does that mean?
Like, you have to know what they're going through in order to do it.
You have to have their genetics and you have to have their environment. Then you could say, I would make a different decision. But we can't do that in theory. Make sense, kids? But did this breakdown was this too complicated for you? Did you get that?
I got
You guys are sort of. You're smart kids.
60-40.
Okay. As long as you kind of got that, then you can understand why we shouldn't judge people as much as we do. Cool? Awesome. So, now the last thing that I'm going to talk about before we go on to our activity today is something I call the everlasting happiness loop. Okay, does anyone want to guess the two things that are in this? What are you looking for, Ali, in every action you take? Yep, happiness, well-being. Okay, happiness. Well, yeah, but what is that success looking for? Well-being. Okay, so this is the bedrock of everything you look for. What's the number one way to increase that happiness baseline we talked about?
Activities.
Help who?
Others.
Others. Is that going to make you feel better? And then does it just create an upward spiral? So the reason it's such a big part of the curriculum is because it is the number one indicator of someone's well-being is how much they help others. It's scientifically proven. Okay, so that's why it's part of the curriculum, but it is also important to not have an ego, a high one, when we play sports, because it increases what mainly? Braden? What does it increase if we have a high ego? Fear. Make sense? Cool. Now, the activity today, boys. And before I say the activity, why does happiness relate so much to your sport, but also everything else in your life?
Like happiness is like some of the reasons you do stuff.
Well, if every action we're looking for is that, should we focus on that or the action itself? Well, yes, but should we focus on the success more than the happiness? No. That's the trap people get lost in. Cool? And I know I'm repeating myself, kids, but I just want to make sure it gets, locked in there. So, for the activity we have, all right, you're going to write down 3-stage compassion for mental training. Write it down in your notebook. We're going to learn the activity you're doing for the week. Who actually did their activities throughout the week? You did? Beautiful. Did you actually see some changes in the way you think? A little bit. Okay, before you leave, talk to me. I want to hear about those changes.
What if you missed days but you still did?
Again, kids, do I want you to be perfect? No. I want you to do it's a little outside your comfort zone. But say you can only do 3 days a week, and that's outside your comfort zone a little bit, that's good. But if it's easy to do 3 days a week, then you need to bump it up. Make sense?
But I kind of did it almost every other day, but I did complete the 3 days in a row.
And good. So if you can't be consistent, kids, just do it for less time. So if I say 5 minutes, do it for 2.5. Until you get it going every day.
What I basically do, I don't know if we were supposed to do it, but remember the first activity, we did 5 reps of each. I just do 5 reps of the, breathing 5 tries and then the other 5
Yep.
tries of that, and then I'm done.
Okay, that's fine. And sitting consistently every day matters more than anything else. Because if you get in that habit of, I'm going to skip today, then go the next day, you eventually don't do it. So sitting itself, I don't care if it's 30 seconds, is going to help you way more than doing it, wishy-wash, kind of whenever you want. But like Braden, if later in the day is easier for you, can you guys do that? Yeah, you have to find what works for you, right? You have to take what I teach you and then self-investigate for yourself. What works for me? Because is what works for me going to be the same for you? Our lifestyles are completely different. Cool? Awesome. So, for this 3-stage compassion activity, does anyone want to guess what the 3 stages are? What do we talk about? Positive? Positive, negative, and what? Neutral. Remember that construction worker example I gave? Okay, so how this activity is going to work. So this is actually a habit I built over time because, a lot of what I've been learning is how to increase well-being for kids, how to mentally train their brain. And one of them is secretly praying for other people to be happy. Okay, so an example could be, a lot of times we do this without even knowing it, but say we see someone that's kind of struggling, or say someone's on the street asking for money, we might in our heads, kind of secretly hope that person gets better, hope that person finds happiness. Right? I try to do that with everyone I talk to, right? Because if I truly want that for another person, not only is it going to make me feel good that I want that for somebody, but it's going to make me communicate with you in the best way possible. Because is everything I'm saying truly trying to help you? Mm-hmm. If I really want you to be happy? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So what this exercise does, okay, is when you imagine the person in your head. So for example, a positive person for me would be my mother. Okay, so when I do this meditation, say it's for 1 minute long, I sit down in my meditation posture and routine that we talked about. So who is not here for the routine? Carter, you weren't here, were you? Okay, so you got to go class number 2 if you need a recheck on how to get set up for your meditation or mental training activity routine. Go watch that, because the same routine applies for this activity. Are there questions on that? So class number 2, once you get the app, Carter. Okay? So for an example, so Cam, show me a good posture routine that we worked on. Beautiful. So you got a straight back, his head's aligned with his spine. This is going to keep him alert, but also not too sleepy. He just falls asleep. All right? An example for now, say I'm Cam. Okay, I would close my eyes, and I would imagine my mother. This is a positive relationship. Is it easy to want happiness for your mother? Yes, but we're going to start with that. Okay, so you'd go for a minute long, per se. You'd close your eyes, imagine your mother, and all you'd kind of say is you just focus on you want her to struggle less, and you want her to be happier. Okay? And you're just going to do that for a minute. You're just going to focus on your mother and how you can practice that compassion skill that lessens your ego towards her. Then you're going to go to someone neutral. So I want you to try and think of someone you might pass by a lot. It could be someone you know, but it's not someone you really give two thoughts to. Like you see him, you say, what's up? And then you never think about him again. That's a neutral person. Okay? But again, what did we say? Does it matter who the person is? Do they all deserve the same amount of well-being? Yes. Okay? Then, this is when it gets hard, negative person. So I want you to think of bullies, people that pick on you, people that annoy you. You have to sit down, imagine that person, and really try and truly get yourself to want happiness for them and to want them to have less struggle. Does that make sense? But that's what that 3-stage does, is it progresses you slowly into that negative person so it can make it easier with that feeling of compassion. But after you do this, you should feel pretty good about yourself. Okay? It's an activity that makes you feel more warm-hearted and makes you want to be more compassionate towards people. Make sense? So what we're going to do is everyone get in their mental training activity positions. So Carter, all I want you to do is you're just going to sit up with your back straight. Okay? We're only going to do... Carmen, do you have the time? My phone died.
Yeah.
What is it? Does anybody know the clock time?
51.
51? Okay. We'll do 1 minute each. And this is what I want you to do for your new activity every morning. Unless you like any of the other ones better, or you think you struggle with concentration more than compassion, or you think you struggle with mindfulness more than any of the 3, pick whatever one you are struggling with most. When kids come into us for mental training, we give them what they struggle with most first. You don't have to follow it strictly in order, unless you're kind of equally bad at everything, which is normal. So do what calls to you. And if you want to do all 3 mental training activities, good for you. That would be awesome. All right. And then after this session's over, too, I want to make sure, like you, if you've had any realizations with mental training or new things that have changed with the way you see and think, not only in sports but in life, come talk to me and I can kind of help you through kind of what's changing. Cool? Okay. Get in your position. You're going to go for a minute long each. And so, I lied. Sorry. On your notebook, I want you to write down your positive, neutral, and negative. Okay? You don't have to show anybody. And if you already have got those 3 people, you don't have to write them down, but sometimes it helps for people to write down 3. So because you need to be ready. So when the minute goes, I'm going to yell switch. And so you'll go from positive to neutral, and then I'll say switch again 2 minutes through. Okay? And that'll send us towards the negative person. Okay, and this is not something you have to show everyone. It's just so you know what you're going to do. So does everyone have 3 people? Yeah? Raise your hand if you don't have 3 persons. You don't? Okay, I'll give you 15, 20 more seconds, Madison. And while we're waiting to, new merch for the mindset stuff came out. So if anybody's interested in that, we'll release that on our website soon for new CTG merch. You ready, Madison? A couple more seconds, Madison. Okay. Are there questions about this, though, before we get started? No? All right. Notebooks down. Get in your positions. When I say go, everyone's going to close their eyes. You'll have your eyes closed for 3 minutes straight, but every minute I'm going to tell you to progress into from positive to neutral to negative. Cool? And all you're doing is just imagining them having less struggle, and you want happiness for them. And what you're trying to do is get yourself to truly want it. Try to not fake it, even though you have to start faking it. Cool? All right. On your marks. Get in your positions, Cam. Get set. Go. Switch to neutral. Switch to negative. Time. How do we do? Do we feel a little better? Yeah? Okay. The main reason that entire time, were you focused on another human being? Which means you weren't spending time what? Thinking about yourself. So it's slowly training yourself to lose that ego, build your compassion. Did anybody struggle with the negative? It's very natural.
Not really.
Not really?
Because I know that person.
Okay.
Because I
Do you struggle with the negative person? Did it make you feel better after you're done though, a little bit? Okay.
kind of struggle with it.
Kind of. And that's good. That means you're growing if it was kind of a struggle. So if you didn't struggle with it, try and think of someone, worse. All right? But the main thing, that warm-hearted feeling you're feeling, that's compassion. That's kind of that muscle skill that you have when you feel good that you want to help another person. Okay, again, why does this all relate back to sports?
Because it helps your ego, and if it helps your ego, you'll think more about other people.
Well, what is everything looking for?
Happiness.
It helps that. And does that make everything in your life better? Yep. So success in your sport's not going to come solely from focusing on that. If you focus more on your well-being, your sport's going to get a lot better, a lot faster. Cool? But the biggest thing, the solution to high ego, build that compassion muscle. But again, think about the 3 buckets we've learned so far in the curriculum, whatever you struggle with most. So if you know you kind of like have a high ego and think about yourself a lot, more than you should, more than the average person, do that every day. If, say, your brain is extremely scattered, which most of yours are, but like to the point where you can't even sit still for 1 minute, then maybe the concentration ones are a good idea. Say you don't know how to be aware of your thoughts internally, then maybe go to mindfulness. Pick what calls to you. Okay? I'm not trying to give you some system that you have to follow step by step. I'm trying to help you learn and then help you figure out what's going to help you the most. Cool? Make sure everyone gets the Mindset app from me. Just text us on the app, email, text, and we'll send you the link. And then you can see all the other videos. You need to watch the other ones so you know how to, because you know how everyone was closing their eyes and stuff. So you didn't really know how to do that because you haven't watched the routine. So make sure you go and watch that.
I have a question.
Yep.
I knew my mom was wondering, like, isn't there the thing with the free shoe or something like that? The announcement?
The free, yes. So we're going to do that soon. So if you entered for that, we'll release that within the next couple days. Carmen, do you want to let anybody else if they want to? Okay. So tonight, you have to send it in. You have to email one of us at CTG Hoops. You can enter to win a free shoe giveaway. The Mental Training Revolution podcast I've talked about at other speeches. So that's a podcast with all of this stuff in way more detail and other exercises. It's called the Mental Training Revolution. All right, it's on Apple Podcasts, but to enter the giveaway, you have to leave a review on it. And then you have to email us and say, hey, I left a review. That's how you enter. So if you want to do that by the end of the night, shoot us an email, leave a review, and then Carmen will let you enter the shoe giveaway. By the end of the night, because it was supposed to be done yesterday.
Is there a calendar for the rest of the year, rest of the summer?
Yep, great question. So it's every Monday for every week we have camp. So the 4th week of July, won't have it because we don't have camp. 4th week of August, we won't have it because we won't have camp. But that was 3, so we have 5 more left. So a lot more to go. But the biggest thing is I'm trying to give you activities that you can use the rest of the year, since most of you will probably only see you this summer. Cool? Any more questions? Beautiful. Thanks, you guys.